So I'm going to try and keep my message on point because there's a lot happening today. And Lauren, once again, has stolen my thunder, but I'm sure she must have read my sermon. I'm going to have to talk to her about this. So building on some of the things that Lauren has said, today's gospel reading follows immediately on from last week. And last week, those of you who were here will remember that Reverend Lorraine had prepared a video sermon that we showed. And the sermon was about the I am the true vine. And she shared with us the idea that we are to be grafted into the vine with the purpose of bearing fruit. And the fruit, as expressed in today's extension, the following on reading, is agape love. That is our purpose. Agape love or agape love, sacrificial love. Now, I'm not disagreeing with her because she might be watching this. I'm going to add on to that to say that fruits vary, I believe. Now, many of you, I don't know if you can see it, but in the rectory garden is a mango tree on the fence line. And we've been now, Lauren and I and the family have been in the rectory for just over 3 years. And so we've had 3 seasons of mangoes. I'll qualify that in a moment. We're coming up for the 4th. First season was okay. Mangoes were, far and few between, but they were okay. And the next season, so not the season just gone, I had 5 to 6 dozen mangoes, with the largest being 1.3 kilos. And I thought, I've worked this out. I am the mango king. Last year, the season just gone, one mango. And I realized that I have no idea what I'm doing, and not just with mango growing. So I'm hopeful that this coming season, we will have more fruit produced on the tree. But even when they did produce, some were amazing, some were less amazing. Some were smooth and delicious and sweet, and some were maybe less so. From the same tree, different fruits. So that's what I'm kind of wanting to focus on briefly, is that not all fruits are the same. And I wonder, off the same tree, and I wonder if this applies as well to the fruits of our faith that we are called to produce. Not the fruits of the Spirit, talking about when we are grafted to the vine and the fruit that we are called to produce. Now, I want to explore this a bit because Jesus makes it very clear it's love. That's what we are called to. Those are the fruits of being grafted to the vine. But I want to just explore another passage with you, and many of you here will be familiar. And it's when Jesus, after his resurrection, appears to the disciples. He's on the beach around a fire. The disciples are fishing. He says, "I'll cast your net on the other side," which I would love someone to tell me when I'm out fishing. Peter recognizes and says it's the Lord, jumps in, swims across. So it's towards the end of John's gospel, I think chapter 21. And Peter and John have this little exchange Peter and Jesus has this exchange. And Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus says, "Feed my sheep," or "feed my lambs." Asks the second time, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Asks the third time, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know all things, you know I love you." And the Bible passage says Peter was, I think from memory, hurt at Jesus' persistence. Now, when we explore that in English, and many a time, I'm sure I've preached on it, we sometimes say, well, those 3 questions were in result of Peter's 3 refusals to, betrayals or denials of Jesus when the cock crowed, when Jesus was being put on trial, and Peter didn't want to be known as a follower of Jesus. So that's one way of looking at it, and I'm sure I've preached on that, and I've heard sermons like that too. But obviously, when we unpack it a bit more, especially when we start looking at the Greek text, there's extra layers, and many of you will know this. This is not new information. There are multiple words that we translate into love from the Greek which have different root meanings. And so agape love is that sacrificial love that Jesus was talking about in the gospel reading today, the sacrificial love of laying down one's life for another. There is no greater love than that. But there's also, and I had to get JJ to correct my expression, my pronunciation, philia or filio love, which is more of a friendship. So when we look at this interchange or exchange between Jesus and Peter, Jesus is saying in the Greek, Peter, do you love me sacrificially? And Peter's response is, yes, Lord, I love you with affection. Jesus uses agape, and Peter replies with the filio form of love. So Jesus repeats the question, Peter, do you love me sacrificially? Yes, Lord. You know I love you with affection. And the third time Jesus says, Peter, do you love me with affection? Yes, Lord. You know I love you with affection. There's a couple of things from that. But each time Jesus said, tend my sheep, feed my lambs. And what I take from that passage is an understanding that there are different levels of love. The bar is set up here with the agape love. And that's what Jesus calls us to do. But in this interchange with Peter, we see that Jesus will meet us where we are. Jesus will meet us where we are. When our flaws and our humanity prevents us from living sacrificially for others, Jesus will still meet us, will accept that gift that we give, and will still send us out to continue building God's kingdom. He didn't say, Peter, the bar was here and I gave you 3 goes. Please get to the back of the line. He said, feed my sheep. Tend my lambs. He took what Peter could in his flawed human state offer. He took that, he received it, he blessed it, and he empowered to send out to continue to grow the kingdom. And I think that is something that we can apply in our lives from this passage that we heard in the gospel reading today, where Jesus says, the fruit that you are to produce is love. Go and produce fruit. I don't think Jesus is going to reject us if we, in our flawed human state, can't produce agape fruit, sacrificial love fruit. And we see that from his interchange with Peter. But what we are called in a world that is often filled with hate, anger, violence, resentment, mistrust, unforgiveness, spite. We are called as Christians, as baptized members of the body of Christ, to love, to bear fruit. Whether we are 70 and over, 7 and below, and everywhere in between, we are called to live our lives with love. That is the great commandment that Jesus gave to us today, the mandate to love one another. So as Lauren said, we're celebrating a number of things today. Mother's Day, the love of mothers around the world for their children. Baptism, the love of God for Alistair and the love of his family and our church community for each other. And our patronal festival, St. John the Evangelist. And actually, Jeff, if you can go to the next slide. I know it's hard to read. That's what you get when you download from Facebook. But this was to me, this just sums up. This is what John the Evangelist preaches or writes, our patron saint. Love one another from John 13. Love one another later in John 13. Love one another, John 13. Love one another, John 15. Love one another, again, John 15. Love one another, 1 John 3. Love one another, again in 1 John 3. Love one another, 1 John 4. Love one another, 1 John 4. Love one another, 1 John 4. Love one another, 2 John 5. I'm pretty sure there's a consistent theme in the writings of St. John the Evangelist, and it is to love. to love one another. Love is what binds all three of the things that we're celebrating today, binds the church together around the world and binds us as community. So I hope my mango tree bears wonderful fruit this season. I really do. I really, really do. But I hope it bears fruit, regardless of the type of fruit. I hope it bears fruit. I wonder if that is the same for God. That God, whilst the bar is agape love, the fruit is still love. And I wonder if God will accept whatever love in our brokenness we can offer as our gift. Our challenge is to try and meet that bar. But even if we don't meet the bar, and even Peter couldn't meet that bar, well, at the time, our challenge is still to do whatever we do to live our lives with love. We cannot control other people, but we can control ourselves. We can control our words, and we can control our silences. We can control our actions, and we can control our reactions. We can control our emails. We can control our Facebook social media posts. Those are the things that are within our control. Whatever we do, may it be done in the fruit of the Spirit. May it be done with love. I think that is my takeaway message. We will all fall short of the glory of God. We will probably all fall short of the glory of Peter. And even Peter failed at times. But whatever we do, may we do our best to bear fruit, which is love. I think God will take that gift gratefully and empower us and send us out into the world to continue to grow God's kingdom. So I think mums understand that. I think the Ball family gets that. I think St. John gets that, understands that idea of love. The challenge is, do we understand it in our actions and our interactions with others? Amen.